There are places in this world that make shivers run down your spine and make you wonder what may be hidden in the sometimes empty spaces. These places are creepy, haunted, and can be found in your hometown. Built in 1886, the Crescent Hotel was built for wealthy tourists who traveled to Eureka Springs for its famed healing waters. The hotel opened in May of that year under the occupation of a year-round hotel, but due to a downturn in the economy in 1900s, it was changed to a strictly summer resort. During the Great Depression, luxury resorts lost their appeal, and in 1933, the hotel fell into disuse. It was reopened in 1937 by Norman Baker, who turned the hotel into the Baker Hotel and Health Resort. Baker claimed to have the cure for cancer, but he had never even been to medical school. One of the rumored spirits is thought to be Theodora, a patient of Baker who died at the health resort, who is said to be looking for her room key. Patrons even claim to see Baker himself in a white suit with a lavender shirt. Baker was eventually arrested and charged with mail fraud in the 1940s, forcing the building to become vacant. It reopened for the final time in 1946 under the name of the Crescent Hotel. Today, the hotel attracts guests for both its scenery and haunts, offering ghost tours that harbor a spooky history lesson. Some guests never make it through the night. Built by Alan the Red between 1070 and 1086, the castle's main purpose was for defense against the Anglo-Saxon nobility who had been defeated during the Norman conquest of England. However, this castle is not just a beautiful piece of history, but also the site of a legend revolving around King Arthur and his knights. It tells of a man named Peter Thompson who found his way to the castle while taking a walk. As he sat down to rest, he saw a small opening in the wall that led to a cave. Unable to curb his curiosity, he set off inside. What he found was astounding. King Arthur's horn and his sword Excalibur. But more than that, he was surrounded by that king and his knights, who were asleep and dressed in full armor. Thompson made the decision to take the sword, so he could prove that his story was true. However, as he began to remove the sword, the knights around him began to stir, frightening Thompson to the point that he fled the cave. Behind him, he heard a disembodied voice state, Potter Thompson, if thou hadst either drawn the sword or blown the horn, thou wouldst have been the luckiest man that yet was born." Turning back to the entrance to brave a second attempt, he saw that the entrance had disappeared, and no matter how hard he tried to find it, he was never again able to locate it. Legend also tells of a drummer boy who had disappeared in the tunnels that linked the castle to the abbey. People have often spoken of the apparition of a young boy playing his drums as he walks the tunnel. His body had never been recovered. Located in the mountains of southern Italy, Villa de Vecchi, also known as the Red House, was built in the 1800s for Count Felice de Vecchi, who headed the Italian National Guard and was the hero of the 1848 insurrection, 5 Days of Milan. The architect behind the design was Alessandro Sidoli, who died a year before construction was complete. After the Count's death in 1862, the villa passed ownership among the heirs of the family de Vecchi until 1938, when it was abandoned. It wasn't reclaimed until 1959, when it was purchased by the Medici of Marignano. One of the most notable guests the mansion hosted was Aleister Crowley, who, it was reported, spent 3 nights at the villa. It is said that his followers used the house for satanic rites, and many deaths took place as a result. However, no evidence exists to support this rumor. Due to theft, humidity, and vandalization, the once former beauty of the tapestries and frescoes are now losing their battle to time and the elements. Aside from the Crowley rituals, urban legends abound about hauntings at the villa. Some visitors have claimed to hear the moan of a woman who had been the owner's lover and was murdered on the property. Others state that they'd heard the sound of a piano playing at night, coming from one of the empty rooms, but the guardian of the estate has laid both those claims to rest. Due to its unsafe nature and crumbling structure, the town has since erected a fence around the house to protect thrill seekers and enthusiasts from danger and the very real possibility of death. Opened in 1952, Northville Psychiatric Hospital consisted of 20 buildings on 453 acres of land, and was hailed as one of the best psychiatric facilities in the country. The hospital was almost completely self-sufficient, having its own laundry, kitchen, gymnasium, movie theater, swimming pool, and bowling alley, all powered by a steam plant that supplied heat and electricity through the underground tunnels. Patients could learn how to play musical instruments, study mechanics, and home economics, as well as work in the hospital and tend the grounds. In the 1970s, as doctors began to rely on medications and drugs for the treatment of psychological illnesses, the state began to cut back on the mental health budget, closing hospitals and programs. Northville, a facility designed to treat only 650 patients at a time, was regularly treating over 1,000, leading to the conversion of the gym until more rooms became available. In the 1980s, staffing cuts began to affect the hospital. In 1983, the Detroit News found the conditions at Northville to be horrendous. Patients were sleeping in hallways, chain smoking, or simply watching TV. There was minimum therapy, with doctors instead dealing out large doses of medication. Assault, theft, neglect, and rape became common. In the struggles with staff, patients often died. Sometimes they died in fights with other patients. One staff member commented that the patients weren't treated at Northville, they were warehoused. All things changed in 1995 when the hospital changed its name to the Northville Regional Psychiatric Hospital, as many other hospitals were closed. In 2002, the state made plans to close Northville within a year. The building was simply too expensive to keep open due to the repairs needed, and the fact that it sat on valuable land. The hospital closed its doors in 2003. Since this article, the property still sits abandoned. Broken windows and the leaking roof have left the building a victim to the elements, but has continued to attract visitors. The city has even gone as far as to backfilling the old tunnels to keep away trespassers. The visitors who have managed to gain access have reported feelings of being touched and breathed on by unknown sources. Many mysterious footsteps and chains clinking have also been reported. The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum was constructed between 1858 and 1881 and is the largest hand-cut stone masonry building in North America. It opened its doors in 1864, with construction not yet complete, and had a maximum capacity of 250 people. By the 1950s, the hospital reached its peak with 2,400 patients living in overcrowded conditions, with illnesses such as masturbation, laziness, fits, deserting one's husband, superstition, and menstrual derangement. Over time, the hospital expanded to accommodate its growing population, but in keeping with the idea of being a self-sufficient hospital, a greenhouse, geriatric center, kitchen, cafeteria, a building for the criminally insane, and a state-of-the-art medical center with morgue and autopsy room were added to the grounds. Later, a tuberculosis wing was erected to house contagious patients, complete with open-air wings and screened-in sun torches. Unfortunately, because of being understaffed and overcrowded, patient murders became common. In one instance, 2 patients hung a third patient with bed sheets. When he didn't die, they cut him down and used a metal-framed bed to bash in his head. The violence, however, was not limited to patients. One evening, a nurse went missing, and her body was found 2 months later, hidden at the bottom of an unused staircase. Treatment practices such as hydrotherapy, electroshock therapy, and lobotomies were frequently used, but with little to no success. Doors closed in 1994 due to changes in medical practices. In 2007, the West Virginia Department of Health and Human Resources placed the building up for auction. The winning bid was placed by contractor Joe Jordan at $1.5 million, who wanted to revitalize the property, but preserve as much history as possible. In this indenture, he was unsuccessful due to a series of fire and code violations. Many teams of paranormal investigators, including ghost hunters and ghost adventures, claim that the building is in fact haunted. The lonely spirit of a little girl named Lily is said to wander the halls in search of a playmate. Tortured moans of Civil War soldiers, as well as footsteps and shadows, permeate the Civil War section of the building. And in the upper floors, the spirits of 2 murderers are said to be trapped, one in the lavatory, and the other in the seclusion cells. Ghost tours are offered at the building, but it has been labeled as not for the faint of heart. However, if you just want to explore from the safety of your own home, an interactive walkthrough and website game is available online at whiteenamel.com.
And that's all the time we have left for this episode of Creepy and Haunted Places. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. And the next time you get the urge to set foot in a creepy or haunted place, don't forget to bring a candle.